So we are on chapter 6, lesson 6. Today we are solving inequalities by addition or subtraction. First off, who can tell me what an inequality is? Do we remember these? Because we worked with these last year. Nobody remembers the symbols for inequalities? No. No. That's a good guess, but no, that's not what it is. Okay. So remember, an inequality, let me give you guys an even bigger hint. An inequality compares two values. Does that help? There we go. So it's going to be greater than, less than. So an example here would be like 3/5 with the circle and 1/4. The symbols are going to be greater than, less than, those things. This is an inequality. This is an inequality. Meaning the two sides, like V said, the two sides are not equal, but you're showing which side is greater. So, you don't need to write this down for this. For algebraic inequalities, you're looking at something like this. Here's an example. 2 plus x is greater than 13. This means that x has to equal a number that would mean when you add 2 to it has to be greater than 13. Before you guys start guessing, you're wrong. What was your guess?
My guess was like
No. Okay, let me show you guys how to solve this. So, you were solving this just like you guys are solving equations. Instead of an equal sign, you have this here. Pretend like it's an equal sign. What would I need to do? What is the purpose of algebra, ladies and gentlemen? So solve for the variable. Please make sure that's in your notes because that may be on a test or a quiz. So again, the purpose of algebra is to solve the variable, aka find the value of the variable. To solve for the variable. So in order to solve the variable, I need to do what? And this is one that you guys have been saying over and over since last year. How do I solve for the variable? I need to, nice and loud. I need to isolate the variable, which means I'm getting the variable by itself on one side of normally the equal sign, but in this case, it's going to be on one side of the inequality. What number can I get rid of to make the variable by itself, ladies and gentlemen? The constant, in this case, it would be 2. Why are we late? So I'm going to subtract 2 from this side, and I'm going to subtract 2 from this side. Brody.
2 minus 2 equals 0. 13 minus 2 equals 11.
So we rewrite it with our current thing. So my answer is not like somebody said 12. This is x is greater than 11. Therefore, x can be any number that is greater than 11. It cannot be 11 because if it were 11, that would make this 13, and 13 is not greater than 13. So this here is my answer. X has to be greater than 11. So it's not, in this case, it's not going to equal an exact number. It could literally be 11.000000001, which is still technically greater than 11. And there you go. So this just means any number greater than 11. Sometimes, yeah.
So technically 12 would have been an answer.
But that is not the answer. 12 could be an answer. 13 could be an answer. 14, 14.75, 15.0527. Again, but this is why we write it like this. Any number greater than 11. We're going to get to that. We'll get to that. Someone's ahead. So, and remember we read from left to right. So this says 2 plus x is greater than 13. The way we know if it's greater than or not, and this is going to sound a little childish, but again, just make it like a little alligator mouth. The mouth is going to be open to the bigger number. It wants more food. So the mouth is open to the greater value. If I were to write it like this, How do I read this from left to right now, ladies and gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen, go. 2 plus x is less than 13. So very important that you guys remember which one's greater than or less than.
And then that would be any number under 11 if it was.
Okay, let's solve this. Then I would still subtract by 2. X would be less than 11. So x, to make this true, x has to be any number less than 11. So 10.9999999 forever, and then any number below that.
Are we going to be using negatives?
Okay, so let me give you one more example before we move on from this. Okay, this needs to be in your notes, just so you guys know. You guys can come back to this and write this down, but again, it's the same idea. The addition property of inequalities and subtraction property of inequalities are the exact same thing as the other one, where you subtract a number from both sides and add a number from both sides. The only difference is they add the word inequalities to it.
Can you put this in Bixby so we can make it shorter?
I literally just did.
I didn't hear it.
So again, it is dealing with the rules of, so again, let's do the original one that we just had. I needed to subtract this 2 from here, and I subtracted this 2 from here. This would be the subtraction property of inequality, because I'm subtracting numbers from both sides to make this even. Now, let me give you guys a different example. If it were x minus, say, 3, in order to solve this, I would add 3 to both sides, and this would be the addition property of inequalities. Again, it's still the same as the last one. The only change is inequalities, because now we don't have an equal sign. So same exact principles, just now it's of inequality. So if I give you guys this example here, what property would you use to solve this? You would use the addition property of, ladies and gentlemen, inequalities. Not the other one, because it's dealing with inequalities now. That's the only change. If you guys understand the other one, you guys are good. Just remember, it has the of inequalities now because of the fact that it's an inequality. No, it doesn't change the way it works at all. All right, new example. Let's do this one. X plus 3 is greater than 10. So I'm going to pick on randoms, and you guys are going to tell me what my very first steps are. Now, you guys keep going into, what's my first step? Isolate the variable. No, that's not a step. That's what I want to do. What is my first step in isolating the variable? Is that a question, or are you trying to give me my first step? Okay, no. I'm going to call on randoms. So, Maddie, what is my very first step in order to solve for this? So I need to subtract 3 to get x by itself. And remember, whatever I do to one side happens to the other. That will be changed. And then I rewrite my inequality. So x is now greater than, ladies and gentlemen, 7. And guess what? There's my answer. Well, for this one, yeah, that was a one-step equation. Now, let's change it. Let's change this up. Let's say x plus 2 is greater than... No, we're going to make this easy. 16. Now it's 7x plus 2 is greater than 16. What would be my first step now? Nope. Rowan, what's my very first step in order to solve this? Subtract. Not the variable. Cody, help him out. Remember, we want the constant gone, and then we leave the variable by itself with whatever's happening to it. So I'm going to subtract the constant, which is 2 from both sides. I'm going to rewrite my equation. Everybody, this is, or not equation, sorry, inequality. This is going to be, from left to right, ladies and gentlemen, 7x is 14. Because remember, we subtracted the 2 right there. So it's 16 minus 2 is 14. So now I have 7x is greater than 14. Now what is my next step?
You gotta divide the coefficient
By?
by 7 and on both sides.
Okay, so I got to divide both sides by 7. That will cancel this out. So now my answer is x is greater than 2. And that would be my answer.
So it's just the same as everything else, just different symbols.
There is one key thing that I need to change. So yes, it's basically back table. We need to be paying attention. It's basically the exact same thing we've already been doing. You just replace the equal sign with an inequality, and it doesn't matter which way it's facing. You just plug it back in at the end. There's one change. One major change, and this is where I need you guys all paying attention. So, we're going to use x is greater than 2 is my example here. X is greater than 2. They want us to now graph the answer. Now, before you guys start freaking out, it is not hard. So, we're going to review something really quick. Here's our number line. 0 in the middle. What numbers are on the right of a number line after 0? Positives are there. What about to the left of 0? Okay, so everybody remembers that. So if the number is getting bigger, it's going to the right. The number is getting smaller, it's going to the left. Okay, now I'm going to erase the 0, and they want us to graph this. There are 2 things that we need to know. Number 1, this needs to be in your notes. In order to graph this, always have the variable on the left side of the inequality. In this case, x is already on the left side. X is greater than 2. So you're going to start off with the variable, basically. So make sure the variable is on the left side of the inequality in order to graph it. You should have, the variable should be on the left side of the inequality in order to graph it. The next thing is the inequality tells you which way the arrow is pointing. So an arrow is basically part of a triangle with a line, right? That's how I've drawn these arrows. Guess what? Just make the inequality into an arrow and it tells you which way the direction the arrow is pointing. So which way is the arrow pointing for x is greater than 2, ladies and gentlemen? To the right. Now, so there's your first hint. The arrow is going to the right. That means the number on the other side, 2, should be on your graph on the opposite side. So it'll be on the left. This will be 2. And then you will do a dot. In this case, we're going to do an open dot. And we're going to draw the arrow this way. This graph now that I've drawn means that x is greater than 2. It cannot equal 2, which is why it's hollowed out. It's an open dot, which means it doesn't equal 2, but it equals any number greater than 2. Now, as Zorowar hinted, there's a little thing that changes when you do this. Anybody know what that symbol means besides Zorowar? I know you know. Abby. That it's what? Not even. Say it. This means x is greater than or equal to 2, which now means that x can equal 2. To make this statement true, x has to be greater than or equal to 2. So x can now equal 2 in any number greater than 2. When you have that symbol, the dot, when you graph, is no longer hollow. It's what, ladies and gentlemen? Solid. It's filled in. So you make a dark filled in circle, which means that x can equal 2 and any number greater than 2. Same thing as we graph. Remember, you put a dot on the graph and then you connect the dots? Same idea, but we have a solid dot. This means x can equal 2 and any number greater than 2. But again, in this case, there was no or equal to sign. Therefore, it's hollowed out. X has to be greater than 2. That's the big part of your guys' graphing. So, let me give you guys some examples here. B is greater than 5. Okay. Really quick, which side is what side is the arrow pointing to, ladies and gentlemen? The right. 5 should be on what side of my graph? So it should be 5, arrow pointing to the right, solid or hollowed out dot? Hollowed out. This is normally it's open or closed dot is what it's called. Open means it's hollowed. Closed means we fill it in. Okay? So you guys got that one down. Let's do another one. C is less than 23. Ladies and gentlemen, which way is our arrow pointing? To the left. Where should number 23 be? 23. Arrows pointing to the left. Open or closed dot, ladies and gentlemen? Open dot, which means it cannot be 23. Open dot. It's got to be less than 23. And you see the arrows pointing to the left. Like we said, left means it's going lower, right means it's going higher. So 23, it's got to be smaller than 23. Let's do P is less than or equal to 14. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, arrows going in which direction? Left. That means 14 needs to be on the right. 14. Arrow goes to the left. Open or closed dot, ladies and gentlemen? Closed. Because of the or equal to sign, which means that P can equal 14 and anything less than 14. Okay. Last one. We'll do M15. Ladies and gentlemen, which way is my arrow pointing? Ladies and gentlemen, what's wrong with this? Dominic. The variable should always be to the left, so how do I fix this? What does this mean? This is saying what? From left to right, ladies and gentlemen? No, from left to right. Oh, okay, everybody stop. 15 is less than or equal to M. So if I were to write this with M on the left, that means M has to be greater than or equal to 15. Now you can graph it. This is why I did this. This is a trick question. You have to flip the whole thing. And notice, I don't just flip or trade 15 and M. This whole thing has to rotate as well. This is saying 15 is less than or equal to M, which means M is greater than or equal to 15. So now that it has been changed correctly for me to graph it, the arrow will point to the, ladies and gentlemen, to the right. That means what number is on the left? 15. Open or close dot, ladies and gentlemen? Close dot, because it can be equal to. And that's it. And that's my graph. That's pretty much the entire lesson. When they ask you, they want you to graph it as well. For the homework, they give you graphs. You do not need to use these graphs. Something like this graph here is enough to show that it is 15 or greater. Let me finish the lesson. Yes?
So you don't have to write down like 15, 14, 15.
No, this suffices. That's enough information to show me that you know that it can be 15 or greater. The arrow has to be pointing in the correct direction. You need to be using the same number. And you need to be telling me, is it an open or closed dot? So again, closed dot only when it's or equal to. If it does not have an or equal to, it's an open dot. Open dot. And it won't let me do this perfectly because it'll auto-correct it. Hopefully it won't. Oh, it didn't. Closed dot. Closed dot means it can equal that number that it's above. Open dot means it can't be that number that it's above, but it's any number less than or greater than it, depending on which side the arrow is pointing.
So it's like, if it's to the right and it's going back, it's less than. So say it wasn't greater than M. instead of n being greater than 15. Would 15 be on the other side, and that would be going to the left, and it's
Yep.
open?
Remember, you just draw the arrow. So the arrow goes this way. 15 would be here, and because you got rid of the or equal to, it's an open dot.
So then why the other way? Why? I don't think we. Oh yeah, with p, and then it was like greater than 14. Why was that?
P
on the
is
right?
greater than 14.
Or I mean less than 14. Why was that on the right side to the left?
Okay, look. Brody. Okay, so we're going to go over this one. Brody, which way does the arrow point?
It was left.
Okay, the arrow is pointing to the left. That means my arrow is going this way, right?
Oh.
So 14 should be here, and since it's not or equal, open dot. Got it? Okay. Now, there's one other thing I need to go over with you guys, and that is certain questions on the homework. So questions 1 through 8, they just want you to solve it. So isolate the variable and then write whatever with the inequality symbol. These ones, they want you to solve and then graph. Again, you don't need to use their graphs. Just make the ones up like I showed you, so you don't have to print these out or write them all down. And for these ones, you're going to write what the inequality is saying. So we are going to do number 17 together, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So number 17 says, the sum of a number and 8 is more than 4. When you read these, there are going to be certain words that are going to be key terms. So, rereading it again. The sum of a number and 8 is more than 4. What is one of the key terms there? Okay, sum is one of them. More is another. And there's another one that's not a single word. Those are numbers, but not key terms. Key terms. Well, more. Of a number is your other one. So, what do we think of a number means? What does that represent?
Like less than? Or.
What does the sum of a number and 8 mean? How would you write that out, Matthew? The sum of a number and 8. What does that mean? So when you see of a number, that means a variable. So what does the sum of a number and 8 mean? It's addition, because we said sum. So what is it? Let's pretend x is our variable. How would I write that? The sum of x and 8. What is that?
8 plus x.
Nope.
Or
Other way
x
around.
plus 8.
Okay, hang on. Just stay there. So the sum of a number, we said a number would be x. The sum of a number and 8, so x plus 8, is more than 4. That one should be pretty easy. That means x plus 8 is, ladies and gentlemen, greater than 4. And that's all that these are asking. You want to write down what the inequality is, and it is also asking you to solve the problem. So for this one, I would subtract 8 to get x by itself. Subtract 8. X needs to be greater than, ladies and gentlemen, -4. Now, this doesn't say that you need to graph it, so therefore we don't need to graph it. Okay, so again, for class, I'm going to stop the recording here because this doesn't pertain in case this is a different year.